Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Anime Review. I'm Zach Reese, your host. Joining me today is Deanna.
Hey.
Hey, so once again, we should remind people, Nusha has been gone in Thailand on a trip here for the better part of a week now. I don't know if he would have made it back for this particular episode. I don't think he had plans to, but apparently his flight got delayed so much that he almost couldn't come back at all. And so, yeah, he'll be here next week, though, if people are interested in hearing more about what he has to say. But yeah, we're going to just roll right into this here. So, Deanna, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Just getting into some side projects.
Side projects? Anything you want to discuss here?
uh, like doing more writing, and also picking up some more hobbies.
That's cool. You said you were playing with your calligraphy pens.
Oh yeah.
Is that is that part of it?
Yes. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing some journaling, just to like get my life together.
Okay, cool.
And it's just like something fun to do, like doodling and stuff, and learning how to do calligraphy. So yeah.
That sounds like a pretty nice hobby. Very meditative hobby from what I
Yes.
know. So
Yes.
all the
How
best to
about you?
you. Going pretty fine. I mean, it's like I've just been mostly playing a lot of video games, but yeah, it's right now our site, RPG site, is gearing up for a big change, and so we've been doing a lot of work on that front, but that won't come to pass for maybe another couple weeks. So yeah, it's just been a lot of work on that side aside from balancing the day job and all that, as I'm sure you know.
Mhm.
So well, on that note, let's just go ahead and get right into it then. I already said we'll get into it, but we'll get into it again as we recap the week in anime. So yeah, like I mentioned before, Nushel's not here, so his list has been deleted just for temporarily sake. But that doesn't mean we don't have a lot to discuss here. Boy, oh boy, this past weekend was a bit of an up and down roller coaster in terms of the content here. So, going off of how we've been doing things before, let's just go ahead and do this in alphabetical order with the shows that we've been watching. And so, first up, based on that, we've got Attack on Titan Season 3. So, we're back to the serious mode, it seems like. What's been happening in that show, Deanna?
This episode proves yet again how brutal Levi is at interrogating people.
Boy.
Just there are no stops to the torment.
Oh boy.
But yeah. So Hanj, she helps the merchant's son. The merchant, he died in like one of the previous episodes, but the son kind of like he was a witness to how his father got murdered. So Hanj is trying to find out the truth, and then he kind of helps the son uh, learn about the interior police's motives, and then she makes sure the public witnesses all of that happening. And so that whole scene like kind of showed how some people are really pathetic and that everyone's just out to save their own asses,
Boy.
and let the government control them. So it was kind of like showing that pathetic side of humanity.
Oh, you were talking about before
um,
that there was like this big conspiracy going on, so
yes,
that's
yeah.
leading to it.
So they're like Hanj and like some other people are trying to put that conspiracy out there. So it'll still take a lot more than just like those few witnesses, but I think they're on the right track. Levi squad, they get two new recruits after John the Horseface tests them to see.
Yes.
He tests them to see if they really want to be part of the cause, and so I thought it was a little out of character for John because he was suddenly like threatening to kill them and stuff, but that was just part of the test.
Yeah.
After like in the previous episode, he was like scared to kill a human being. But yeah,
That's
and
right.
then we have Erwin, as you can see right there. He is in having an audience with the king and is about to receive his final sentence. But that shot of his face right there, he's obviously got a plan and he won't back down that easily. So that'll be interesting to see. I don't think he'll die. I mean, I haven't read the manga, so but I'm pretty sure there's gonna be something that'll like keep him from death.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
overall, the
good character.
episode.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. Yeah, he's an important character, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. But overall, the episode seemed to have the right amount of tension and drama. So the humor was kind of absent for this episode, but I mean, makes sense when you're, going into all that government conspiracy theory stuff and
Yeah.
torture.
I hope that season 3 can continue that because yeah, I mean, there's in the past in Attack on Titan there has been some issues where like the balance can be off, like the pacing can be a bit off with how they present it, or it can be way too overwhelming at times to enjoy. And so it seems like they're letting the political intrigue really sink in, which is kind of nice. It sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, good. Then we'll move from one intense show to another.
Oh God.
Banana Fish. Now, last week, you talked about how freaking dark and dramatic it got. Banana Fish. How did it go this episode, though?
So the gang, they're in Los Angeles now, and before they go to this one person's house, they stopped by Max's house where Max got to see his wife and kid, which is a really heartwarming moment. Um, obviously Max hasn't been around for a while since he's a journalist and everything, and he was in prison before, so his son like really misses him and stuff. But with all these like new characters, that also means potential deaths. So I'm very afraid for Max's family. So Ash, he's very like he obviously does not like parental figures.
No, I wonder why.
He kind of like yeah, he kind of messes with Max's wife, calling her an old lady. And that he follows that up with saying like parents all suck. Like you can't choose your parents. So we also so they leave Max's house and then they go to this new character, the one on the far right with the ponytail. His name is Yao Si, but he is actually one of the Lee brothers, who's also like a mafia from Chinatown.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so his real name is Yu Lung, but obviously he's kind of like putting on airs to like kind of trick the group into revealing what they're doing, which is to find more information on Banana Fish. And Yao Si is kind of like he's the son of the doctor who's kind of behind the whole Banana Fish drug thing. So so that scene shows it showed that Ash was very tech savvy. He knows how to do like a lot of hacking and all that stuff. So everyone else was pretty impressed.
Did they present it well though, the hacking, or was it just like classic CSI style? I'm curious.
I mean, he had like a USB, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, this is for hacking purposes and stuff." So
it's just like he wrote on the stick that says like for hacking purposes only.
So I just plug it in, type in a few things, and boom, I got all the information.
Wow. Impressive.
Yes.
In back then, I mean, come on.
So let's see. Okay. So there's a lot that happened. I'm trying to like gather my thoughts, but so Yao Si, he basically threatens Shorter's family. Shorter, the guy with the purple mohawk, but he's not pictured.
Yeah.
He's like Ash's best friend or whatever, but Yao Si threatens him, and so Shorter has to like report to Yao Si about Ash's activities. And it's really heartbreaking because Shorter actually respected the Lee family, but then realizing that they're just like the same as Dino and his men, he was like tearing up and like he was just very angry.
Yeah.
So and usually like Shorter's this like goofy guy, but then just to see him very serious and just heartbroken is like it's really telling of his character. Ash also plays bad cop because AG and AG and Eve they have to go back to Japan because their visas will expire soon or something. And so Ash was like, all right, I'll be the one to tell him that he needs to go back. But and so, but as soon as AG feels down about himself, feeling like he didn't do anything for Ash, like Ash is like, like that's not true. Like you actually saved me and Skipper. And then it's so sweet because like after that whole scene, Ash goes to the kitchen and like drinks an entire like glass of whiskey, and then then Max comes in and he's like, "You must have felt really bad telling him to leave." Like that was so sweet.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
So yeah, Um, and so let's see. At the end of the episode, of course, Max's family, they get ambushed by Dino's men, and so they're probably gonna
Mm.
get used as bait or blackmail. So I really don't like where this is going. It's like, please leave women and children out of this.
Oh my god, it seems like that's the driver of the show, is that you've got all these different families, these uh, gang groups that are all
Mhm.
sort of struggling for power and strength, and then they obviously use everybody else to their advantage. So seems like this show is propped up for a lot of heartbreak, and so it's kind of,
Mhm.
I assume the women and children are going to be the first to go, which is sad to think about.
Don't say
I'm sorry, I
that.
just thinking about it. That's how these things can go. So hopefully they're protected, because that sucks if anything does.
Yes.
So it's been a pretty good show so far. It continues to be a very strong one for you.
Mhm.
All right, cool. Well, let's go to a different one then. Making this show, Cells at Work. This show was weird. So this is kind of a it picks up where the last episode left off, where we got introduced to the cancer cell. Who transforms into the cancer cell. It looks a little bit like Kaneki from Tokyo Ghoul, a little
Oh
bit.
my god, I had that same thought too.
Yeah, it was actually kind of cool because I did some research because I was curious. I was like, I wonder if he's voiced by him too. He's actually voiced by Akira Ashida, who's been around forever. Like, people who don't know, he's like Kaworu from Evangelion, Gaara from Naruto, Athrun from Gundam Seed Destiny, protagonist from Persona 3, all these kind of different roles. So it was, yeah. When I first saw him though, I was like, yeah, it's Kaneki. But that it's all set up here where NK, who remains as the coolest character in the show so far. She's the one that pulled him aside, away from everybody else, away from the white blood cell. And was it the killer T cell? I forget that other guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So she pulls him aside to isolate him so that she can take care of him herself. But of course, it becomes way too much because the cancer cells proliferate through the system and destroy the cell walls, and so they get everywhere inside the body. And so they're obviously going to be busy with that while dealing with this cancer cell that's mutated to like this abomination. And it's weird because like during the show, it's like they're trying to make us empathize with the cancer cells,
Yeah.
which is not anything I would want to do. I mean, he's got quite the
Mhm.
look with his crazy wings, his flesh wings or whatever they are, like his cell, his membranes. But I can't really say I would ever empathize with cancer cells. I did like how Macrophage sort of saved the day, and it was weird because this felt like the show's climax, because like where can you go from cancer cells?
Mhm.
I mean, I guess like if the entire body is shutting down, but then we're getting into that other, what was it, that other manga that where everything's super dark. It's like
It's I think it was just like a spin-off. I don't know the title, but
Cells
yeah.
at Work Black or something. I forget what it was, but
Oh yeah,
yeah.
probably Black
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
that can get pretty bad. But yeah, this episode was a little weird. Like it's like I said, it felt like it was gonna go like a really dark route. But then like when they defeat the cancer cell, he's got like those black X's on his eyes, and I'm just, oh, okay, okay. And everyone's like having this very happy, jolly moment. Like, I've got this picture here where they're all like having a good time. Uh, I I didn't. They tried to sell like this a sad moment where the cancer cell was sort of created for no reason at all, and they're trying to run away from being killed by the white cells. And like there's this moment there where it's like, oh, is the only other person he knows gets killed off, and so he's got this vengeance in his system that he wants to like defeat everybody. And then he has this speech about how like, I was created for no reason. Why do you have to kill me? Why can't we be together or something? It was so bizarre. What do you think about this episode?
Yeah, I feel like that moment at the end when the white blood cell had that talk with the cancer cell,
Yeah, had to do his
it was
job.
just like, "Yeah, sorry, man, I gotta kill you."
I was like, okay.
So, I mean, like, when we saw the cancer cells as kids, like, of course, you can't help but feel a little sympathetic because 'cause they're kids, like, and they were just brought into this world without a choice, and then that gave me, like, Tokyo Ghoul vibes,
Yeah, totally.
but then yeah, they followed through with, like, "Oh, dude, I still have to kill you. You're a cancer cell, like, how could I let you live?" But yeah, and then the whole, like, the climax thing. Like, it did feel like it was supposed to be like the final episode for the show, but then this is only episode 7, so we're gonna get like 5
Yeah.
more episodes. And like also to see all the other cells come together at the end, that was also kind of like a sign that, you know, it felt like it was the end of the show because everyone just like came all together. But I guess not.
Yeah, it felt like everyone's coming together because they all need each other to, make their way through it. So I'm actually gonna quickly check this up to see what the next episode is called because I was curious. The circulatory system. So yeah, they're back to that stuff. So yeah, after cancer, you go to the circulatory system. I mean, I assume like at some point the character's gonna like have a heart attack or something, like something serious, like the
Oh
brain
my
shuts
gosh.
down or whatever. Like this person has got quite the body. I mean, to be fair, I believe cancer cells always exist inside the body, and it's just how your body fends it off, so it doesn't turn into what do you call it? It's from benign to malignant. So it's all about trying to stop that from happening. So it's not like this is something unusual to have cancer cells inside the body, but the way it's all presented, yeah, it feels like it could have been like that was game over at that point. But everyone's having a good time. Even a helper cell comes out from his desk and helps everybody. So I don't know what was happening here. Just a weird paced show all around. But let's get back to the angst, actually.
Oh.
Sorry, I
Wait, I
go.
have to mention the whole scene with the platelet
Oh, when they're poking
when
the
the red blood
cheeks.
cell poked her cheek. So cute.
That was
Okay.
super adorable. Yeah, I'm glad they showed at least platelets for like a hot second there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, nice to see you. Every episode, last episode they had child red blood cell. Now they're going to the platelets again. So long as they have like a brief glimpse of these characters, I'm okay. It
Yeah.
brings me back. So that'd be
We
fun.
need our platelet fix, so.
Absolutely. So on that note, actually, while you're taking care of that, I actually forgot an image I needed to get. But let's talk about Free. Dive to the Future. You said this episode was super angsty. What did you mean by that?
Yes. So I have a lot of mixed feelings about this episode. There were a lot of connections that the characters drew to the Little Mermaid story. And so Ikuya, the green-haired dude, is the prince who like drowns in the ocean, and then Hiyori, the guy with the glasses, is the mermaid who saves him. But then the young girl like comes across the prince, and so the mermaid like goes back into the ocean to hide, and that young girl is supposed to be Haru. And so I guess that story is supposed to be kind of like what their actual relationships among each other is about. And so we get a little bit of Hiyori's childhood backstory, and I kind of felt sorry for him, even though he's still kind of an asshole. But he was basically like left alone a lot as a child while his parents went to work, and so um, he meets Ikuya, who's kind of like, hey, let's be friends and all stuff. So like Hiyori's like, oh my god, like someone wants to be my friend and stuff. And so I feel like, despite that backstory, Hiyori had plenty of chances to grow and become more mature, but nope, he's still clinging on to Ikuya's friendship out of pure jealousy. And so, and then that leads us to a very fan servicey scene between the two of them at the playground. Hiyori's just saying like, "Why are you so hung up on, Haru and your past because that's affecting your swimming performance?" And then Ikuya's like, "You don't understand, you don't get it," and then like walks away. And so that's when like emotions were like running wild at that moment. So yeah, I was like, I tweeted like screenshots of that moment. I was like, free the angst between us, and I was just like, oh,
Oh
a
my
story told in
god.
3 parts.
It's
I
a
couldn't
little
help it.
disruptive. Yeah, that seems a little like off-putting. I don't know. It's like it came out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
I'm starting to realize that this season isn't all that different from the previous ones. Like,
Huh.
we get the same like rivalry story. Someone who's like the person's best friend, and then like, there's just so much angst, but then eventually through swimming, they kind of resolve it, which is obviously where this show is gonna end up going. It's like the same concept, but new characters. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got the feeling from that. based on what you were talking about. I was like, this seems like it's paced the same way as before. So that's um that's a little shocking there. So we'll have to find out how that goes. Uh yeah. So I was getting something ready here. It's because I forgot an image. Let me talk about Angels of Death. So it seems like it's weird because in this episode we're already introduced to what I think is the main dude. If you remember what I mentioned last week, Deanna, that after the credits something happened, and I didn't want to
Mhm.
spoil it. So it's because Zach is in a really bad way. It's as I also mentioned during that episode, Kathy, the crazy woman, she drugged Zach, who then proceeded to stab himself to rid his body of the urge to kill, so he can stop from killing Rachel at that point. So on the next floor, we come upon an area that is sort of a recreation of a church, which is kind of appropriate because Rachel is super religious. In the last episode, it was revealed that she is a far greater sinner than even Zach is, which is kind of weird because he's a serial killer. I didn't expect that at all. As such, we learn a lot about Rachel in this episode as she's tasked with collecting the pieces of herself by recognizing and confronting all her past sins. For one thing, she is sort of forced to confess, at least it's represented this way, that she apparently murdered her parents. Uh,
Oh my god.
yeah, so they're presented here, and she's supposed to she's given a piece of glass, and these paintings come to life, and her what appears to be her parents come through the painting, and she slices them because she needs to save Zach, so she has to proceed through these random rooms. Um, so at that point, though, she meets this priest of the floor. His name is Gray, and he's the guy that from the poster that people see. He's the guy that this blind guy that has his hair slicked back. If we go by the poster alone, he I guess is the last person we're supposed to get introduced to, which is once again weird because we're talking about what episode I think 7. Um, he murders people after passing judgment on his victims, so he decides whether they live or die. So in order to treat Zach, Rachel needs to revisit Danny's floor. Danny is the person that was on the second floor that treated Rachel as she came into this weird tower or whatever. He's the person that Zach killed in the first place to have everybody basically go after him at that point. However, in order to get there, she has to first take a test on every floor to turn the electricity back on, so that she can continue to go through the different floors. Gary is the one that's Gray, excuse me, is the one leading her down all these different floors. So she essentially has to lean more and more into her dark side to get Zach the medication that he needs, which I thought about for a bit there. I was like, wait, Zach sliced his stomach open real good. So I don't know how medicine can fix that. But I do remember that she mentioned how she has needle and thread in her bag, but I guess she doesn't want to use it because I imagine she could just patch that up and they can kind of continue, because right now his guts are spilling on the floor. It's that very
Oh.
anime style where he's dragging blood everywhere. He's probably dumped about 20 pints of blood on the ground, but he still manages to move just fine. So I don't know. I mean, he is not fine. He's going in and out of
He's
consciousness.
dying.
He was on an electric chair and buzzed multiple times and was still alive. So I don't know what kind of person he is. I just thought that was weird. But we're getting into it in this show. It's getting super dark, as it always been. But it's all about what he or sins she herself has committed to become this person that she is. She's super, cold about it. She's murdering people sort of nonchalantly to make sure that she can get Zach treatment. She goes to the floor where they have all these machine guns set up, and she has no hesitation, turns them on to kill all the people that have come back to life so that she can clear the floor. It's become that kind of show.
Wow,
It's
that
pretty,
sounds brutal.
yeah, pretty brutal. And she has no remorse. Go figure.
And wow, we were just talking about parents last week, but this week she just oh, I killed my
Yeah,
parents.
have no care in the world, and once again, it's kind of weird though. It's that I will mention Kathy's body wasn't there when she returned back to the room that I talked about last week that she was killed in. And so I wonder if that's going to lead into something, because once again, we're only technically just over halfway through this, what it seems to be the season. So I wonder if they'll come back still alive, but we'll
Mm,
find out, I
mm.
guess.
Pacing for these anime seems so weird
I
this
know.
week.
I know. It's weird because like once again, Gray appears to be the last person we're supposed to be introduced to, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the show. So hopefully this show continues to pace itself well. I've not played the game, so I don't know how it goes. But let's switch back to something that you've been watching here, Gintama. Now I know you hesitate a little bit, wondering if whether you should be talking about this show every week, but you know, entertain us. Let us know how this episode went.
Yeah, so I'm hesitant just because like we're so far into like
Spoiler
we're
territory.
basically in the end game of the show, and so I don't want to like spoil anything if people want to pick up Gintama, and then also I don't want to confuse you guys every week as to what's going on.
Sure.
So I'll just like briefly talk about what happened,
Yeah, only
and
talk
just
about as
point
much
out
as you
some.
want to. Yeah.
Yeah. So this episode we are getting moments with Hasegawa or Madao, who's the sunglasses dude on the right, and he's kind of like he's been like the butt of the jokes for like a majority of the show.
He has super bad
But he
luck,
kind
from what
of
I
gets
remember. Yeah.
yes. So he gets like kind of this cool moment where he gets his job back as the immigration officer because in the beginning he lost his job because he failed to like meet the needs of Baka Oji or stupid prince, who's the guy in the middle right there. um, so it's kind of like a callback to the very like first few episodes where we meet Madao, and so it's a call for like how they're gonna save this like space fleet that's crashing to Earth. And so he's like, yeah, let's put up all these like shields with our spaceships and like try to lessen the blow or whatever. And then
Right.
people
Right.
are like, wait, yeah, like what, you would do that and all that stuff. So they're kind of like, who is this man? Like, why does he have such authority? But he's really like, he goes, I'm just an unemployed man. And then he smokes a cigarette, like saying it all coolly. But it's
It's
like,
like, no, it's not
yeah.
cool, guy. Sorry.
Yeah. um so yeah, and then we get to Gintoki and his crew, they're close to finding Sadaharu, but then Sadaharu, if he keeps using his powers, he will continue to shrink into a tiny puppy, and then he will disappear if he keeps
Ooh,
doing so. So
okay.
yeah, yeah. So that's where it's headed. Um, and then I feel like the animation quality dropped a lot in this episode. There were a lot of poorly drawn facial expressions, and I don't know. Hopefully, it's not going to be like that for the rest of the season, but
Yeah, I mean, I imagine they're just ramping up to the end of it, with where they're going to spend most of their budget on it, so that makes some sense. They can't always have like top tier episodes, which is a bit of a shame considering, yeah, it's wrapping up. You hope that every episode nails it, but it makes
Mhm.
some sense in that case, I guess. But
Yeah.
so yeah, Gintama, Silver Soul 2. It's hard to imagine that the show is going to be ending soon, but that won't stop it maybe from coming back in some capacity later, but we'll see.
Yeah, the manga was announced to end in 5 chapters recently, so
Ooh, have you
it's
been
really
reading that?
ending.
Have you been reading that at all?
uh, I have not been keeping up, but yeah, just hearing that it's ending like for real, I was just like, oh no.
Do you think you'll go back and read it once the show's done, so you have something to?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
it's
Like
totally
I'm
fair.
pretty sure I'm gonna like hear about how it's gonna end before like the anime itself ends. So
Yeah, you gotta keep yourself away from social media, but it's fine. Not gonna stop you
yeah.
anyway. Um, well, yeah. Well, let me talk about a show that then, in that case, that I have not been keeping up with until yesterday. Gigigi no Kitaro. So yeah, this show it continues to be really good. Uh, so I had to catch up. Episode 19, 20, and 21 is the ones I didn't end up watching until recently, like I said. So episode 19 is all about this guy. Well, it's not all about this guy, but it starts off with this guy who hates his cram teacher so much that he wants to kill him. So that's pretty messed up. But the whole episode revolves around how people are voluntarily turning themselves into ghosts, or at least actively going to this alternate dimension to attend what's called ghost school because they can sleep in and never take tests, which of course sounds appealing to any kid. But it also appears that everything's taught aligned with what kids are interested in. Like they just like, you want to do the test? No. Oh, okay. How about the study? You don't want to do that? Fine. And I like how this thing is that Kitaro actually goes undercover, but all he needs is a pair of sunglasses and no one recognizes him at all. That's the image that I chose. So he's like, he takes it off. He's like, I think Cat Chick later is like, perfect disguise, and Mana's like, what? Huh? It's just sunglasses. What? It's like the Clark Kent style of disguises. So, um, it's not it's actually not a bad thing that I waited a little bit, because there's an entire arc that starts here with Nanashi Sama, or the Nameless. His look reminds me a little bit of Hastur from Cthulhu. He's like this skull face, like these giant, like this really tall with these robes on, and so they're all confused about who this character is because they have never seen him before. But then they move on, and episode 20 goes to show how poignant and emotionally charged the show can be, because while Kitaro continues to do research on Nanashi to figure out what exactly he is, Mana visits her great aunt, who is in the hospital. So this is where the show kind of shows how good it can be. So her great aunt, who's in her 90s, she apparently had a sweetheart from the 1940s who promised to marry her but suddenly disappeared, and she's been alone ever since. So they travel to this island to the far to the south of Japan, because there's these flowers that no one can really identify, and then Katara comes along and says these are yokai flowers, and it must be from somebody who has some sort of connection to Japan. And so they follow the flowers all the way south to find it. And at this point, Mana, who's like, she's still like this kid, doesn't understand how serious World War II was. Like, all she knows is that she thought, Japan was invaded and bombed, and that's about it. But what happens is that once they arrive on this mysterious island, the sounds of war can be heard through the forest. So there's like people screaming and dying. The whole, apparently what it's figured out later is that this was all kind of a ruse to drive away the loggers that threatened to take down their sacred tree, which is what this image is of. So the source of the sound was created by a yokai who has this letter that's addressed to Mana's great aunt, who passed, and so this soldier passed away during the war, and it looks like 70 years later, she finally got his message. And I don't really remember an anime touching upon war in this capacity, so it was a bit of a shock. Like, they really drill into it about how, there's all these fights that were going on. It's like Japan wasn't just invaded, they were also doing a lot of fighting to expand their empire. And so there's this really touching story about, how this man had to suddenly leave his love to go away to fight in the war. And she thought that, he was just completely missing, didn't know what happened to him. But then she's given this letter, and there's like, once again, this very touching moment about trying to react to that. So I thought that was a reminds me how much I really enjoyed this show. A show that's been going on for so long continues to have these episodes, kind of like Atama. Like, there's always these episodes that despite it going on for a while, they can still deliver these really important, touching moments, even if it, like in this case, this is sort of episode to episode style of a show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then finally, episode 21, which seems a little bit like a filler. Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer, but it has like this really fun moment. So Takurobi, that's the floating fireball on the left. Takuro is a fire yokai that can't make any friends because fire, so that makes sense. No one will touch him. So of course, Ratman, who's this biggest, who's this character, one of the longest running characters, he's all about finding ways to exploit anybody to make some quick buck, and so he finds a way to do that to Tokorobi because he's awful. So he like puts him in this show where he's like, oh, there's like this amusement park theme where it's like this volcano you can come to, and like this big stage show and everything like that, and Ratman wants to make a ton of money that way. But while he's there, Tokoro meets a robot named Pigu, who wants to be his actual friend. Like, they're both very shy and nervous around other people, but they find a way to talk to each other, communicate. They teach each other to be more sociable. And so there's this very heartwarming episode all around. There was no mention of Nanashi in this episode, though, so it definitely felt like a filler. But, it was all great. Like I said, it was very charming, these two characters, and I hope we get to see them again. So I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty nice.
Oh, that's so precious.
Yes, exactly. Like this image itself, they're just having such a great time, and they're teaching each other how to dance on stage and everything. And yeah, it was pretty nice to have it. Great voice acting too, all around. Like all these episodes, still amazing voice acting. Like they're very childlike voices. It's kind of a it takes you aback a little bit. You see something like this, but yeah, they're like nervous kids, so it was really cute. So moving from that, let's go from the heartwarming to the bizarre. Honey Bottle. What the hell happened? Um, so let's talk about this. Uh, I did like. Let's talk about what I liked about this. Let's talk about that first. So, I kind of liked how they're starting to show the heartache of what it feels like to lose in a tournament. I've been there, so and it doesn't feel good, and so that was kind of crazy. And apparently Sora, who's the girl that we talked about before, is
Hmm.
really good. So she was like one of the last three that was still in the tournament, and so I hope they kind of develop her further. So yeah, and then we get into this moment here where like Koroko, who's the pink-haired twin-tail girl, her teammates apparently hate her, which is kind of like that's like a really weird situation to be in. They were getting to the point where it's kind of like comedy villain where they were like, haha, rub it in her face. Oh, she's so bad at this. Um, I did like how though that even they kind of settled down after a while, and it kind of became this show episode kind of felt like a shoujo anime a little bit, or like really deep into the sports anime kind of stuff here. So, what'd you feel about some of this stuff though?
I feel like Ayano is mentally losing it, and it's
A little
definitely
bit.
gonna bite her. It's gonna bite her in the ass in the finals or something. Like, there's no way she can get away with just being like that savage without someone like putting her in her place.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, as no one noticed Ayano's crazy eyes, so she's just walking around with like this very dead stare in her eyes.
Her drugged eyes.
Yeah, drugged out eyes, like she took a lot of meth, something like that. There were a lot of psychotic people in this episode, like the teammates, Ayano, sometimes Koruko.
Oh
So
my god, even like the coach from the other school with the big lips, like
the
he
choked
approached
lips.
Aragaki from behind. That was so uncomfortable. I was like, dude, no, what are you doing? Stop.
I know. It's
And then
like
he
he's
like goes back to that. Yeah, he goes back to that one girl and then he's like, she's already lost or something. I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? So I don't know. That was really weird.
yeah, he's the coach for that girl that man, I'm blanking on names here, but
Yeah.
the girl with the glasses lost to in the previous one of the
Hmm.
previous rounds because now it's Aragaki versus her, and so I guess he was analyzing her. But when I first saw him, like, is he about to like sexually assault Aragaki? I was getting super uncomfortable with what was happening here. And
Hmm.
I will also say that while I would only feel bad for Koroko, she did make Ayano sick so she could win, so that was kind of messed up.
Yeah.
So I didn't
Hmm.
feel that turned off. But overall, the extreme personality switching has been a little bit of a turnoff. Like, so from what I understand by doing some research, it's that this is a lot different than the source material. I mean, when you and Nusha around, like I did read off what the manga was described as. It was from the perspective of the coach, uh, but in the way this is presented, and I can be totally off base here, but it makes it seem like emotional abuse makes you stronger because Ayano
Oh yeah, that's
uh,
not a good rhetoric.
becomes very powerful at that. I think that I like the message that hard work pays off a lot more with
Hmm.
Aragaki, so I wish they focus more on her story. Because right now it's like they're doing all these crazy things for Ayano's mom, and I can't really get behind that. And once again, like they flip a switch and they become psychotic, and that's not how it works. I don't know. It's like it's getting to the point that it's so bizarre, so out of left field sometimes that I just don't know. Like I hope, as you say, that yeah, I know it comes back and bites her in the ass because I don't know. I will say at least they won't do the same. I guess they might still go down the road where it's Aragaki versus Ayano. I hope that Aragaki doesn't get buried in the next round when she has that match, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. I kind of hope that personally that Ayano loses, and so it's
Hmm.
Aragaki and who I forget the name, Connie. I think yeah, Connie is the other girl, the blonde haired girl. That
Oh
they are
yeah.
the ones that faced each other instead, and Ayano has to sit from the stands. I think that would be better, but I think they're all setting up the showdown between Ayano and Connie, so I shouldn't be too surprised. Actually,
Yeah.
wait, no. She already lost, didn't she? Connie lost, didn't she?
Wait, she did? Oh
No,
my
wait, no,
god.
no. I'm sorry. That was the practice match. I'm sorry. That was the practice
Yeah, yeah,
match they
yeah.
had. Sorry, I thought for some reason that they fought each other already. Which this is a
They
totally different
fought each
tournament.
other.
Yeah, they might as well have. I mean, honestly, they'll come to blows sooner or later. That's what it feels like. But
Yeah.
yeah, but they actually also didn't touch on what happened to Ayano's mom. She was there last episode, and she asked where Ayano
Yeah, I
is.
was like, okay, they like built her up in that previous episode, and then now she's like not
She's not
there.
gone. Like she apparently couldn't find her, I guess, or she. I don't know. They had like a little hint. This episode seems like it's out of order. I don't know. I couldn't understand what happened there, but
Yeah,
hopefully we
I
get
feel like the episode for today, it's going to be focusing on Aragaki and her match, so I feel like we're not going to get much of Ayano and her mom until like next week or something.
Yeah, I get the feeling that Aragaki is gonna get buried, and I don't like that. Because I kind of, but at the same time, I wish they tell us more about that girl that won against Glasses
Mm-hmm.
Girl. So
Yes.
I hope we get that a little bit there. All right. So before we get into the final show, let's talk about Re-Rent Tsukumogami. I actually said it right this time. Tell me about this blurry picture you used, because I'm confused.
Yes, so that's not just a bad screen cap, but that's like the two Tsumogami are like fighting each other in slow motion. So that was okay. So you know how I mentioned Suo, like the Suo's person,
Yes.
last week? So we actually got to meet him through a flashback, and his name is Sataro. And apparently, he is the son of another antique or items shop. And so I'm getting the sense that there's like some rivalries between the siblings shop and then that shop. Uh, I just don't know what happened to Sataro like in the present.
Oh.
I don't know if he like went away, but basically, we get the incense burner from Sataro's mom, who brings it in to the shop, and I guess it holds some sort of sentimental value to Oko. And I kind of want to predict that it used to belong to like her parents or something before like something happened to them. So, which is why she's very like, Suo's person or whatever. Like she's very obsessed with that. Um, so going out of the flashback, we get protective brother Seiji, who wants to keep this playboy away from Oko. And so the playboy, Konosuke, he has rumors surrounding him as like this guy who makes kiseru rain, which is basically like the saying that he attracts women because kiseru, which is a smoking pipe, brings a man and a woman together for a night of intimacy. So like he's a player, and so Seiji, after hearing those rumors, he kind of like tells Oko like stay away from him and all that stuff. And
Wow.
Konosuke like visits he visits their shop, and then Seiji's like, "Don't worry, I got this. Like you can go in the back. I'll handle him." And I'm just like, "Whoa, okay." Like, and side note, Seiji and Oko they're not actually related. I guess Seiji was adopted into Oko's family, so they're not blood siblings. So, uh,
Okay.
yes, I don't know how I feel about that, but if we get more backstory, maybe it wouldn't feel so weird.
Yeah,
But
that's bizarre.
yeah, I don't know if that was the thing in during the Edo period where like families adopted children and like yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I'm sure that's happened, but like it just for this story, like it's kind of like okay, like obviously he has feelings for his sister, but because they're not related by blood, yeah, I don't know.
Oh boy.
Uh, yeah, so Konosuke's Tsumogami is that guy on the left, and he is basically he's like very protective of his master, and he kind of tells the other Tsumogami that he is not actually a playboy. He actually can't handle alcohol, and whenever a woman gets close to him, he like runs off. So kind of like the whole, you can't judge someone based on rumors or like first impressions. So after Seiji, after hearing that, he kind of like meets with Konosuke again and kind of like wants to figure out who he actually has feelings for, which is this girl named Ohana who works at a sweets shop. So it wasn't actually Oko that Konosuke was interested in.
Hmm.
Um, and so I thought like So one of the main Tsumogami who's like, the focus of this episode, it
Yeah.
was Goi, who he's more of like a mediator. He doesn't really engage in conflict, but this episode or like this whole thing like kind of prompted him to like take action, which is what it's like a parallel to Konosuke who doesn't like take action to like confess his feelings for Ohana. And so that was like a nice parallel between the two. And then I thought like the episode ended in a cliffhanger because we never got to see if Konosuke actually like confessed his feelings. But the end card was actually him kind of like just showing him saying like, "Oh, I like you too, that girl." So I need to be paying more attention to the end cards
Yeah.
because that shows. Yeah, and I
That's
did
fair.
find out that Lily Hoshino, she is the one who's in charge of like creating or drawing those end cards for every episode. So
Okay. Okay.
it's
So
not just like yeah. hmm Um. So overall, I feel like the show the mystery aspect has been much simpler than the first episode. It's kind of more focused on the people rather than the Skumogami, which is it's not a bad thing. I feel like because we get to see, as I mentioned before, like these Skumogami having these humanized characteristics, especially like their relationships to their owners. So that's what I really like about this show.
yeah, but it is kind of weird that you can get like some context from end cards. So
Yeah. I was like, okay, so I have to wait all the way to the end to find out what happens. But yeah.
oh man, are you gonna go back and like look at all the end cards from previous episodes just to see if there's anything?
That's what I did. I
Oh.
was like, wait, did she really do it for all the episodes? And so that's how I found out.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, it does still seem to be a lot more compelling than some of the other shows that we've been watching. So at least you've got that going. So that's good to hear
hmm
that it still continues to be a fun watch, especially with these
Yes.
weird slow motion moments. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is very comedic, it's like just these two Skumagami like duking it out.
Oh my gosh. So let's go ahead and wrap things up then with the final show that we can talk about, My Hero Academia, of course. So High School Girl, I was gonna cover it, but apparently it wasn't subbed in time, and so I don't know where that is. Same with Tenro Sirius the Jaeger. Apparently, as you said, like it hasn't been subbed either, or maybe there wasn't even an episode this week. So next week we'll catch up on that show. People who are interested in that, like I was so interested in what happened in High Score Girl because Ono is back, but I guess I'll have to wait a little bit longer to find out. The Raw is out, but that's about it. So My Hero Academia, once again, they're going through the provisional testing to become a hero for the licensing. And in this episode, yeah, you see the image. So in this episode, they are tasked with rescuing people that are, bystanders or people that just need rescuing in a destroyed zone. So here we get introduced to the Helpless Company, or the Huck, I guess, if you want to go by that. And they're the Professional People in Need Rescue. And so they're a bunch of hired help who, try to help people out. It's funny because they sometimes, when they first introduce, it's just a bunch of old people looking at the screen, mugging at it. Some guy holds up like a bottle of blood, I guess, just to make it look like it's even fake. And I'm sad to say, Minita is back. Once again, throwing a knife into the dynamic between Uraraka and Deku. Oof. Uh,
Oh yeah.
I will say, and this is my biggest beef with the episode, I wish they didn't sort of bash us over the head with the romantic interest between Uraraka and Deku. Apparently, like in the manga, there was only like a panel about it. In this,
hmm
they kind of really lean into it. It's like, all right, I mean, I'm interested, but at the same time, stop drilling it into us that there's something between them. Like, and they do all these flashbacks and things like that. It's like, this
Yeah.
is so random. I don't know. Like, this stuff could have been better used to push the episode further than having this like weird off moment where like it doesn't do anything for their interest. Like Deku's running away. It's like they didn't have this moment. She just kind of randomly had this feeling because I guess he saw someone naked. Like, come on, Uraka, don't be so weird about it. I don't know. What did you
Well,
think about that?
I'm I mean, I feel like at least she's aware of how her feelings are affecting her performance as like a hero or a student.
Sure.
Um so I mean like I get that, there it might be playing too much into that, but like for that one scene where she watches him run away and then she's like, "Oh, I'm going to like put these feelings away." Like at least that was that showed like she was very serious about wanting to, you know, become a hero and not just let personal feelings get in the way.
Yeah, focus on the task. I wonder if they'll bring it
Mhm.
back up though, because I imagine like in the manga itself, the panel was just that she was gonna bottle up those feelings, and I agree that was totally important to show that.
Mhm.
Um, but I wonder if they'll continue to lean into that. But you know, there were other moments of the show that were pretty good too. This episode, where like I like how Bakugo's attitude actually worked in this case, where like those people telling those people had those minor injuries that you know to move on their own. But apparently his tone lost him some points.
The power of intimidation.
So good. They're like, maybe he knows, but still minus points, and he just gives them a look, and they're like, ah.
Mhm.
So that was
We also get this really tense moment between Todoroki and Inasa.
yeah.
Inasa really hates this guy. Like,
Wow.
I feel like it's something. It has to do something with Endeavor, but
Yeah.
they're just yeah.
Like was he a protege or something like that, and then they had a big falling out. I don't know what's going on there, and I do
Yeah.
like how he even lost points with his wind powers because like he wasn't doing it right. Like he wasn't
Mhm.
being
It was still sloppy.
yeah, it's still sloppy. So and they haven't really leaned into what Todoroki can do yet, so I'm curious about him being like the top of the class, like how well he does it. It just goes like what the contrast is between their two teams. I guess we'll find out. um I do like how Gain Orca suddenly appeared because he's one of my favorite looking characters. I like how
Oh
he's like
yeah, that's yeah.
he's number 3 in the heroes that look like a villain. It's like
He's
yeah,
like a gang boss.
yeah, he looks kind of scary. And the whole point of that they introduced Gain Orca because this is supposed to force the heroes to know how to multitask by balancing their
Mhm.
rescue efforts while fighting supposed terrorists. Um, so yeah, overall, like it was interesting episode. Like there's some once again, there like it seems like they were kind of dragging their feet a little bit with some of the stuff. But I think the biggest bummer about this though is that it looks like the next episode is going to be a filler.
Yeah, it's a special,
They're
and it's
calling it a
so
completely
weird.
original episode. Yeah,
Yeah. Again, with the whole pacing with these shows, like why are they doing this in the middle of the season?
yeah, they're back in class, you know, and this is episode 58. It's like so far, like one of my biggest compliments about the show is that it was paced so well, and they never really felt like these you know, these filler episodes. There was that part when they were moving into the dorm rooms and all, but like that still had some moments at the end. There potentially could be something like this, but they're calling it a completely original episode. So obviously it's not based on the source material. It's something that like maybe they're running out of like they're catching up too quickly to the manga. I don't know what the case is there, but yeah, that's kind of lame, I think,
Mhm.
to do that. So
I mean, we're still gonna watch it, but
yeah, we are going to talk about it next week as well, of course, but like it's something that I hope that they figure things out, and we only have to deal with one of those episodes, and we can continue in because things left off on such a cliffhanger that I'm interested to see where it goes. uh Part of me, like my bet is that despite Gain Orca being there, actual terrorists will show up and start to disrupt the testing
yeah,
again. So
yeah, that's my feeling too.
yeah, I guess we'll find out from that. Hopefully, we learn also more about those other students from the other classes because that was starting to get kind of interesting as well. They seem to know what they're doing, and they didn't really explain how they knew what they were doing. They were talking about like experience, like did they do rescue efforts before? Like they didn't really touch upon that. I don't know how they know. Maybe from the teaching, but I guess we'll see. So
I do
okay,
have oh,
go ahead,
I
go
do
ahead.
have a prediction. I have a prediction about that Cammy girl.
Yes,
The one that
the
was like
naked girl.
naked in
Yeah,
front of Deku. Yes. I do have this like suspicion as to like who she really is.
I do
But
too.
I don't know if I should say it.
Is she the crazy girl with the blades? that's
Yes, yes,
that's
yes.
that's exactly what I was when I saw her and the
Okay.
way she acted. I'm like, I get the strong feeling that she is. I kind of hope she isn't because it'd be nice if she's her own character, but at the same time, yeah,
Like, cause you can tell from her classmates, like even like her behavior is kind of weird to them. So like that's not her. And then like Uraraka, she kind of has this like weird thing going
suspicion.
on, like
Yeah,
looking at Cammy, and she's like, I don't like this. So
I did like how Kami kept waving. Says like,
yeah.
hi, hi,
And then
just making it worse.
freaking Minata and Kaminari, whatever, were just like yelling at Deku for being dense or whatever.
Man, he had a good episode last time, with saving everybody like a
Hmm.
Bakugo, but then he gets wrapped up with Minita's shitty attitude. I just cannot stand Minita at
Yes.
all. So, the less of him, the better. Like, what are you there? How did you even make it this far? I don't know. God. All right.
Every week we just roast Mineta.
It's for good reason because he's the worst character in the group, and the entire show really. But maybe we'll find another character that we can roast, to alleviate everything. But we'll see. So on that note, that's kind of the recap for the week. Once again, we're waiting until Nusha comes back. Actually, you and Nusha show up because apparently next episode, Deanna, you'll be gone.
Yes.
You'll be in Iowa. Nusha will find his way back from Thailand in some form. Maybe he'll hitchhike his way back across the ocean. And he'll be with us next episode. So you can talk about the shows that he's been watching, like Planet with. I imagine we'll talk a lot about that because that's the one show we haven't been watching ourselves. And also that supernatural investigation group anime. I forget the
The
name.
Muhyo and Roji or something.
I can. I actually didn't write it down, so I don't even know what it's called.
Okay, I think it was something like that.
Yeah, we'll find out. He'll tell me. But yeah, and Sirius the Aegir, of course, and High Score Girl. Me and Nusha watched that show, so it'd actually be nice to have him back so we can talk about how things have gone once he catches up. But thank you, Deanna, for being a part of this episode, as always. And thank you all out there for listening. Once again, I'm Zach. Catch us next week, though, for a new edition of Anime Review. Bye, everyone.
Bye.